Now, I want to turn your attention to another story now, which many of you who follow on Twitter may already be familiar with. This was my tweet the other night. A friend in the legal business just told me a major trial was adjourned last week because a member of the judging panel needed, quote, time to pray. The trial is unlikely to be reconvened for 3 months. The defendant has been waiting for 3 years for the trial to start. What a colossal waste of time and money. And of course, I also said no marks for guessing the religion of the judge in question. Further details have come to light, detailing that the prayer request made last week was granted, meaning the jam-packed timetable that the hearing cannot return for months now. Joining me now to discuss this is our resident legal expert, Barrister Rebecca Butler. Rebecca, a very good evening to you. Thanks for joining us. I was told this was a judging panel. Now, I know that you're more expert in this matter than I am in terms of what judging panels are, but I mean, in terms of a judging panel with judges on it, what sort of court would that likely be?
Oh, that could be any number of the tribunals that we have in the country. Say, for example, in an employment tribunal, a lot of the regulatory tribunals, so the GMC, NMC, General Dental Council, any magistrates court, actually, those are all effectively panels. And these are courts that are run by lay people who effectively act as a lay juror.
Right.
So in all of them, there would be a legally qualified individual, and then the lay panel members,
Yes.
the lay jurors. They are the ones that I suspect in this case it's one of those that
Right.
couldn't be available.
And the way it was explained to me, and there was a sort of not really any great shock about the fact that the person involved asked for time to pray and was kind of immediately granted it, even though the case was sort of quite near the end of its life, and even though this would mean putting it off for at least 3 months.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite a shocking story, because I think, as anybody knows, there are massive delays in the court timetables at the moment, and a lot of people are waiting for justice. And, you know, some people might think, well, so what if a guilty defendant's waiting for justice? You know, it serves them right. But actually, there are victims on the end of their crimes, and it's also the victims waiting for justice. And anything that delays a trial, it's unacceptable if it's an avoidable delay. It's just not fair to anybody. So I think that is the problem here. And to be honest, it has kind of happened to me and colleagues of mine as well,
Right.
where this issue has been raised. So it's not unique, it's not new. I think maybe this case, what makes it stand out is that the consequences are so dire for the trial itself. And I think that's what probably marks this out, because of the very long delay.
Yes, and the defendant, I understand, has already waited 3 years for the trial to come to fruition. So that period of time is going on, and the defendant, regardless of what he or she may have done, or whether he or she may be guilty or not, you don't want to be in limbo for this amount of time, really.
No, and the victims don't want to be in limbo either. You know, because on all tribunals there will be a victim. So if it was, say, you know, the General Dental Council, there'll be a dentist sitting around waiting for 3 weeks for their trial, and at the other side of that there will be professional colleagues, the regulator themselves, or even victims of that dentist, just as an example, who are all waiting for justice. It's unacceptable. And I think my view about this is that it's an unimpeachable request.
Yeah.
So nobody can put their hand up.
It sort of has to be granted, because I mean, this happened on a Friday, and so, you know, the request for prayer was granted. But if you'd gone into a judge that you were performing in front of, or appearing in front of, I should say, and said, look, I have to have the afternoon off because, you know, my mother's not very well, would they give you the afternoon off?
No, they wouldn't give me the afternoon off. The simple response would be, don't take the case if you can't do the whole court timetable.
Right.
Obviously, emergencies arise, and the court will always accommodate an emergency. But I'm afraid having to say your prayers on a Friday is not an emergency.
No.
I mean, you know, I've had situations, one about 5 years ago that I remember very well, where I was before a regulatory panel, and one of the panel members delayed the start of the trial because she took her dog to the vet.
Right.
And I just imagine, as a barrister, if I'm asking the court to give me time to take my dog to the vet, it's so it's so incredible that actually no professional would do it in the first place. Because, by the way, they are taking money to be there. And I'm afraid if you balance taking an animal to a vet with starting a trial, I'm afraid the starting of the trial wins every time.
You would think so. One of the things that I was struck by was that I put this tweet out over the weekend. It's already had more than 450,000 views. An awful lot of people, shall we say, who were of the leftist persuasion, didn't believe it. The first reaction for them was to go, this never happened. Prove that it happened or else it never happened. You know, they don't want to think that it might have happened. They don't want to realise that possibly somebody got a special deal because of their religion, which other people wouldn't be able to get.
No, it does happen.
Yeah, exactly. But my point is that isn't it interesting that the reaction of people who don't want to hear anything terrible about Muslim communities, they don't want to hear anything terrible about any particular minorities, they just don't want to listen to somebody telling a story of something that happened where preferential treatment was given.
Yeah, I think, well, that is what I would refer to as the reductionist argument, is that it's very much easier to defend the indefensible by saying it didn't happen, prove it. You know, it's like anti-vaxxers do that with vaccinations, you know, prove that they work, show me your research. These are just bland reductionist arguments that actually don't take the discussion any further. But I've been looking at the definition of Islamophobia today, and in fact, my concern is that even discussing it in these terms, you and I could be guilty under the current recommended definition of Islamophobia. We could be guilty of basically a racist matter. We could be guilty of Islamophobia. And that's a big worry.
Yeah, of course it is. And it's a blasphemy act by the back door, which none of us want. And I think we'll keep talking about this, I'm sure. Rebecca, we've got to run, but thank you very much indeed for your time. Rebecca Butler, there, a barrister, on this remarkable story that I uncovered over the course of the weekend. We'll do more on that as the week progresses.